Kingsman: The Golden Circle is directed by Matthew Vaugh, brings back Taron Egerton, Mark Strong, and even Colin Firth, whose reason for coming back outside of money. I mean, his character's reason for coming back, I won't say until you actually see the movie. But it also brings in Jeff Bridges, Halle Berry, and Channing Tatum as part of the Statesman agency, and Julianne Moore as the film's villain. So the movie takes place sometime after the first one. Eggsy finds himself on another mission, things are all going well, and then suddenly, the entire organization of Kingsman is destroyed. All of their agents are killed except for Eggsy and Merlin. So eventually the destruction of Kingsman leads them to America, where they come across the Statesman, which is pretty much the same thing except the American side of that spy agency. And both of them have a common enemy in the form of Poppy, played by Julianne Moore, who's the leader of this crime organization called the Golden Circle. And then action ensues. So this is the sequel to 2015's Kingsman: The Secret Service, which was one of the biggest surprises of the year it came out. I didn't expect much of it. I knew Matthew Vaugh was the director who did Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class, which I both think are really good, First Class especially. And even though it's based off a comic book by Mark Millar, similar to Kick-Ass, it was very creative, stylistic, and turned out to be a great action spy comedy. I absolutely dug it. So with Kingsman: The Golden Circle, this is the first time Matthew Vaugh has come back to do a sequel, because he didn't do the sequel to Kick-Ass, he didn't do X-Men Days of Future Past, he's not really known for doing sequels, so this should be rather interesting to see Matthew Vaugh actually come back and do a sequel. And Kingsman 2 is very entertaining. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the first Kingsman, not even close. If you want my honest take on this movie, while I think it is entertaining in points, I just overall think it's okay. There are a lot of scenes and scenarios in this movie that are very similar to what happened in the first movie, which usually I don't mind that, because if you take a movie like Terminator 2 or Aliens, where those sequels had scenarios that were very similar to the previous movies, they took those scenarios, kind of twisted them around, or just went bigger with them to make them really different from the first movie. In this one, not so much. One of the big things you remember in the first Kingsman was Sofia Boutella with her prosthetic legs that are basically blades. That's something cool. That's something that I don't think I've really ever seen in these kinds of movies before. And in this movie, we have a character similar to that, which is the villain's henchman. He's pretty much Spencer from Bionic Commando. Nothing too special. And you just watch it and go, oh, a robot arm? Well, the Winter Soldier has that. Oh, it can turn into a grappling hook? Oh wait, Spencer from Bionic Commando can do that, so I've kind of seen this trick done before. And then there are some jokes that they attempt to repeat in the first movie, but they just kind of go halfway with the delivery of the jokes. I won't say what one of them is, but it's near the end of the movie, and it's very similar to another joke that I thought was kind of tasteless near the end of the first movie. So it just kind of falls flat in some of those areas that tries to repeat what the first movie did. Now, that's not to say the humor in this movie is bad at all. No, it's really funny at points. And I can't remember the exact moments that had me laughing hard, but this movie definitely didn't fail at making me laugh at certain points, which is something that Matthew Vaugh is really good at. Out of his genre films, X-Men First Class might be the most serious of them, but with both Kick-Ass and Kingsman, both of them had a really great sense of humor that worked, and it works here. The action scenes are a lot of fun to watch. They're very creative at points. They have their share of shocking moments because, again, it is rated R. So you will have those moments where people get blown up, dismembered, and chopped up. But there's no action scene that really stands out as super, super inventive. Like that scene in the first movie that takes place at the church that's pretty much Westboro Baptist Church. So nothing really stands out in terms of the action scenes, but it is fun to watch. The actors are really good. Once again, you got your returning cast members doing a good job, like Mark Strong, Colin Firth, and Taron Egerton. And then you also have some new cast members who I feel like are kind of wasted, which is really disappointing considering how much they kind of built them up and considering how big in names they are. Like Channing Tatum. This is not so much a spoiler as it is a warning, but all the scenes that you see with Channing Tatum in the trailers are pretty much what you get in the movie because he's hardly in it. It was a major disappointment. And what's funny is that I went to the screening with a friend of mine, and sometimes at these press screenings they have this giant banner on the screen that shows the movie that you're about to watch. And she just said to me, you know, I totally forgot that Channing Tatum was in this movie. And then once the movie starts and it goes on, it's just like, yeah, there's probably a reason why we forgot Channing Tatum was in this movie, so that's a rather disappointing thing. And Halle Berry is pretty much Merlin, and Jeff Bridges is once again there to play an unintelligible cowboy like he did in R.I.P.D. and True Grit. But thank God he keeps accepting these roles, because it once again allows me to do my Jeff Bridges True Grit impression. That's one of the things I loved about the Coen Brothers remake of True Grit, outside the fact that it's a fucking great movie. Jeff Bridges' performance is unintentionally comedic. I love it. Back to Kingsman, though, and specifically The Statesman. It is a cool idea that there's this different spy agency that kind of is partners with Kingsman, but it's in the US, and instead of working in the tailor business like Kingsman, they work in the whiskey business. And just like with Kingsman, how the characters' names are pretty much puns, like Galahad and Merlin, the Statesman's names are all puns as well, based off liquor, like tequila, ginger ale, or champagne. God, you know what? Saying that out loud is actually pretty stupid, so no, that doesn't work. Galahad and Merlin work really well because they're supposed to be from Arthurian legends, but having characters being named off of alcoholic drinks, yeah, that's kind of stupid. Now the villain, or villainess I should say, is Poppy, played by Julianne Moore, and I feel like her character was wasted as well. Samuel L. Jackson in the first movie as Valentine had a presence. He was at the forefront of his major plan, and he interacted with the characters. He was there firsthand. If one of his henchmen didn't do anything correctly, he was there to do it himself. But with Julianne Moore's character, she's just stuck in this weird 1950s-esque layer in South America, and she never really interacts with any of the characters until the climax of the movie. And you don't really get a true sense of what her motivation is. And honestly, she's not in the movie enough to where you remember her. Out of all the new characters, she's the one who's actually vital to the plot, but still rather disappointing. The last thing I'll say is that the movie is just too long. When I walked out of the screening with my friend, I asked her, what'd you think of it? And she told me, that was much longer than I thought it was. And yeah, it is. This movie is clocking in at almost 2.5 hours, when the first movie was just 2 hours. It had a very good pace to it, but with this movie, because a lot of elements and actors are kind of wasted, it's not worthy to be 2.5 hours long. And while it is very entertaining in a lot of areas, ultimately there are a lot of points as well that just seemed boring and drawn out. So this is a little bit of a tough movie to rate, because overall, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it did make me laugh at points. There were a few moments that kind of worked on an emotional level. The performances are great, and it has a lot of really cool gadgets and ideas thrown in there. So it has all of these elements, except a reason to care. Honestly, I was just kind of on this movie. It's not terrible, and I wouldn't even say that it's a poorly made movie, but it's not all that great. For me, it's just kind of okay. So I would say watch at your own risk. If you want to see this movie, then by all means, go see it. You'll be entertained, you'll laugh. Some of those few emotional moments that the movie has might get to you as well, but just don't expect it to be as good as the first Kingsman movie. If I was ever put in a room and was told to watch this movie again, I'd probably watch it, but I don't see myself going out of my way to see this again. Hey, that's just my personal opinion. Not too much of a disappointment, because I was definitely entertained, but I would definitely say that it's a letdown in some shape or form. And that's my review for Kingsman, The Golden Circle. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.